Once upon a time, in a small town where the dusty streets echoed with laughter, there lived a boy named Samuel. He was poor, in fact, so poor that his family counted every grain of rice before dinner. But Samuel had one thing he cherished above all: a pair of old, worn-out leather shoes. They weren't new. The leather was cracked and the laces were mismatched. But to Samuel, they were treasure. Those shoes made him feel like he belonged. One winter morning, on his way to school, Samuel noticed a girl about his age sitting barefoot by the roadside. Her feet were red from the cold, her eyes hollow from hunger. She hugged her knees. Shivering, Samuel stopped. He looked down at his shoes, then back at her bare feet. He hesitated. Those shoes were all he had. Without them, he'd be mocked at school, they'd call him names, treat him as if he were less than nothing. But something in the girl's eyes pierced him. It wasn't just sadness. It was a silent, wordless desperation that echoed the emptiness in his own stomach. That night, Samuel couldn't sleep. He thought of her curled up on the street, thought of how his shoes kept his feet warm while hers bled against the stone. In the pale light of dawn, he made a decision. The next morning, Samuel did something he knew would change his life forever. He polished his shoes until they gleamed, tied the laces tight, and walked to the marketplace. There, among the bustling crowds, he found a cobbler, a man with hands like wrinkled tissue paper and eyes that twinkled with wisdom. Samuel hesitated, then asked the cobbler to buy his shoes. The old man examined them, his face impassive. Finally, he named a price, a few coins more than Samuel had hoped for, but still, it was enough. With a mix of hope and trepidation, Samuel handed over his shoes and took the money. He returned home with bread for his family and a new pair of sandals for the girl. When he found her, she was sitting in the same spot, her legs pulled tight against her chest. Samuel walked up to her, his heart pounding. "Here," he said, extending the bread and the sandals. At first, she looked at him with wide, suspicious eyes, then slowly, as if afraid to break the silence, she reached out and took the offerings. She slipped the sandals on, their simplicity a stark contrast to Samuel's former treasures. Then she hugged the bread to her chest. Tears welled up in her eyes as she whispered, "Thank you." Samuel didn't wait to see what she would do with the bread. He turned and walked away, his heart lighter despite the ache in his feet. Years passed. Samuel grew older, but his worn-out sandals remained his constant companion. Life was still hard. He worked odd jobs to help his family and dreamed of one day owning a real pair of shoes. Then, one day, as he searched for work at the city market, a woman approached him. She was well-dressed, her eyes kind, her smile familiar. "Are you Samuel?" he asked. He nodded, surprised. She smiled. "You may not remember me, but I remember you. You gave me shoes and bread when I had nothing. That act saved my life. Today, I own a small business, and I'm looking for someone trustworthy to manage it. I want it to be you." Samuel froze. The barefoot girl had grown into a woman of strength, her spirit unbroken despite the hardships she'd faced. His small act of kindness had planted seeds that had grown into a flourishing tree. Overjoyed and humbled, Samuel accepted the offer. He began working in the woman's business, learning new skills and gaining confidence. One evening, as the sky blazed with the colors of sunset, Samuel stood in front of the mirror, his reflection staring back at him. In his hands, he held a brand new pair of shoes, black leather gleaming in the dim light. A smile touched his lips. He was still poor, but he no longer felt empty. He looked at the worn-out sandals in his other hand, a silent testament to the journey he'd traveled. It was time to let them go. As Samuel stepped out into the world, a new resolve filled him. He understood now that true wealth lay not in material possessions, but in the strength of character and the warmth of human connection. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can travel through time, crossing paths, returning to us in ways we could never have imagined.